This is a video I've wanted to get around to for some time now. Don't know why it took me so long. And I did something like this maybe 4 or 5 months ago, where I took heroes from their own rogues galleries and pinned them up against villains I would like to see them fight. This is going to take pieces of that, but overall, we're taking Batman's rogues gallery. We're giving these individual villains to other characters around the DC universe. Maybe Batman has died. Maybe Batman doesn't exist in this world. Or maybe these villains have simply gotten bored of the Caped Crusader, they want different challenges, and they've gone on to fight other DC heroes. Because there are so many Batman villains and so many good ones, I decided to keep this video to 10 rogues gallery characters. I'm going to start off with Poison Ivy and throw her in the rogues gallery of Superman. I think there's a lot of reasons why Poison Ivy would be such a great fit to be a villain to Superman. And I'm sure if you dug deep enough, you could probably find a lot of like nitty-gritty details that would define her villainship to Superman. However, just looking at it on the surface, Superman has already been, in a way, thwarted by her before. She has brainwashed him into working for her. That is already a threat to Superman. The fact that his mind in that moment could be so feeble that she could take over the strongest person on the planet, that's pretty crazy. If you're dealing with a villain that in a way could already best the Man of Steel once, why wouldn't she be able to do it again in some other way? Given her abilities and the fact that over the years her power level has been heightened so much to the point where she could easily take on stronger foes than Batman himself, why not give her to Superman? This is a character who is also connected to the green. She is the queen of plant life. There is a lot she could do that goes beyond just brainwashing Superman. Mother Nature is arguably the scariest thing in existence, and she controls a piece of that. So throwing her as an addition to the members of Superman's rogues gallery, it just makes his villains that much harder. Next, I'm going to give Scarecrow to Martian Manhunter. Martian Manhunter really does not have that many notable villains. It's really hard to pick out who he's got. Malefic and Despero. When it comes to a lot of the characters that surround Martian Manhunter, there's not really many you can think of on the spot. I think the greatest thing about Scarecrow is he doesn't necessarily need to be an Omega type of superhuman. A lot of the times when we look at characters like Superman, like Martian Manhunter, like The Flash, or even Green Lantern, we think of characters that need to be on their level of strength and abilities. And I think what is so great about Scarecrow is that his Scarecrow toxin is pretty much universal. It affects anyone who intakes it. I could only imagine the fear, the straight up terror that Martian Manhunter would have to go through to relive memories on Mars and seeing hallucinations and almost dream sequences of people around him dying, his family dying. Also seeing his greatest fear being fire, maybe instances where he's engulfed in flames and he feels like he can't get it off him and he's just sitting there crying like a baby. I think there's a particular relationship with Scarecrow to Batman where there's two instances here. One of those relationships being, what does a man who induces fear to anyone simply by wearing this very intimidating bat costume feel afraid of himself? Number two, it's also when Scarecrow finds out Batman is not so easily intimidated himself, or if he simply has found a way to bypass the fear toxin of Scarecrow, it now becomes, what can I create? What can I do to finally make Batman scared? With Martian Manhunter, you are dealing with a character that it might not take that much for Scarecrow to get Martian Manhunter to drop to his knees and beg for mercy. Reliving the death of his people and the burning of his world is not something he wants to relive. Next, for Penguin, he will be joining the rogues gallery of Nightwing. These characters have of course had many run-ins with one another, at one time being Robin, at one time being Nightwing, and we've seen it happen in other media as well. Penguin makes so much sense being a mafia criminal crime lord type of a boss to Nightwing in Bloodhaven. He can still operate out of Gotham, but I do believe that Nightwing would take ownership of this villain almost kind of as an arch nemesis. Penguin also tends to really hate the Boy Wonder, so the fact that that Boy Wonder grows into being Nightwing and he's still pretty much harassing him, that's also a connection through dialogue and relationship, the fact that they've been doing this with one another for so many years. A big inspiration of mine going into this decision is how they reacted to one another in Arkham Knight. There are times where it almost feels like Penguin was Nightwing's villain more than he was Batman's. And sometimes, and I know this might be a bold opinion, but when you look at Batman today, especially comic book form, this is no ordinary regular human being anymore. He is taking on characters that are so far beyond what a human should be doing, and yet he still makes it simple a lot of the times. Maybe it would be okay to allow Penguin to move away from Batman, because Batman is dealing with villains and threats at so much higher of a level than where Penguin would be. So in a situation like this, I would like to see Penguin's new playground be Bloodhaven. Next, for Clayface, I decided to bring him over to Wonder Woman. I like to think if Poison Ivy is the #1 strongest villain of Batman, Clayface is probably the #2. Yes, there are ways to defeat Clayface, but it's not necessarily going to be through matching him strength through strength, or even simply just fighting him in general. You have to strategically put something in motion that will stop him from using his clay-like abilities. And I'm not saying Wonder Woman would not be able to figure something out like that. She probably would. But in general, the idea of Wonder Woman tiring herself out, she's not putting him down properly, just to see him keep coming for more and testing her warrior-type spirit, that is what really sold me on this matchup. I also feel there is a slight symbolic connection between the two of them, nothing too crazy, but if you go off of the origin, Diana, or at the very least the Amazons, are created from clay. There could be this idea with Clayface that it is a from clay you were born and from clay you will return, some sort of connection like that. Maybe you could do something wild. He finds his way to Themyscira and he starts replicating himself into Amazonian women. Or maybe he's actually the clay that they use to breed and create new Amazonian women. Something wild like that. And then eventually, as time goes on, Diana, or Hippolyta, ends up finding out that a lot of these Amazonians are just Clayface who has infiltrated their land and their people. This is a matchup between two characters I didn't think would ever work beforehand, but the more I've thought about it, the more I'd love to see it. Next, I put Killer Croc into the rogues gallery of Aquaman, who is in desperate need of an upgrade in a rogues gallery in the first place. The biggest thing about Killer Croc is his size and his strength. I don't think there is pretty much any way he would be going up against the King of Atlantis. You would 100% need to upgrade his size, his durability, his strength. If you maybe made him the size he was in Arkham Asylum, or maybe the monster he turned into in Arkham Knight, and made him much more powerful, then I think this would be a fight worth fighting. And it also makes sense for Aquaman having a lot of sea creature villains, or just creature villains in general. You could definitely find a way to make Killer Croc fit narrative-wise. I think there could even potentially be some really interesting team-ups between someone like Black Manta and Killer Croc going up against Aquaman. And then we have Two-Face, which I decided to give to Green Arrow. I actually think there are a lot of characters Two-Face could have gone to, but why this one feels so perfect is mainly because of the political nature that Oliver Queen has, and the fact that Two-Face is all about political decision making. How would Oliver Queen deal with the fact that their White Knight DA was turned into a burnt piece of toast? When you relate it to Batman, the Two-Face storyline is so important to Bruce Wayne and Batman as well. He was working alongside with him and Commissioner Gordon, trying to make Gotham Gotham a better place. And to see what happened to him and the aftermath of that crumbled everything they were trying to work for, it almost feels as if the protection and the safety of Gotham City took 2 steps forward and then 10 steps back. It's almost as if they fought for pretty much nothing in the end of it. I think that could work almost as well with Green Arrow in Star City, trying to make their city a better place through the help of Harvey Dent, Oliver Queen, Green Arrow, and watching all that progress just diminish back to where it was before, and if not, it even makes the city a worse place when Harvey Dent becomes Two-Face. I also think Two-Face would have the potential of even being an arch nemesis to Green Arrow moving forward. Next, I have Hush, and I decided to give him to the Question. Over the past couple of months, we have talked about the Question quite a few times on this channel. Very often, I mention things, and even commenters mention things about how great villains for him would be the Riddler or Court of Owls. So I decided I didn't want to go in that direction since we already kind of know that, but why not Hush? I think this is a character that offers enough mystery and conspiracy that would give the Question enough of a job to do. Not to mention that this is a character who literally carves other people's faces to be able to make a composite version of another person's full-on face. That is enough to make the Question interested. You could also do really interesting things where maybe the Question is trying to figure out who Hush is beyond the bandages, and when he finally gets to that point, he actually unbandages a face that is literally the Question's face. No eyes, no mouth, no nose, just blank. That could even open up more doors as to why, what's your end goal here. You could even bridge Hush with other secret organizations like the Court of Owls, and Hush could lead the Question down a path where he discovers something so much larger, even larger than Hush himself. Hush could literally be utilized as a walking clue. Keep following my clues, walking my path, and eventually I will let you see what I want you to see. And how the Question will solve that would be very interesting. Now, for Riddler, weirdly enough, I've decided to give him to Cyborg, another character who almost has next to no villains at all. Of course, this is not going to be a battle through fists or even necessarily weaponry. This is going to be a battle of the mind. And if anything, I could actually see this being a much bigger deal to Riddler than it would be for Cyborg. You are dealing with a character in Cyborg who can solve problems within 0.00001 seconds. Because at the end of the day, he's more than just a walking computer. He's technology that humans do not have yet. He's also alien technology. So a lot of the questions we have about science and tech, he already has that. I think Riddler would be so upset that there's nothing he could do to someone like Cyborg to throw him off guard or to catch him being wrong. Cyborg pretty much just answers all of his riddles before the Riddler can even actually spew out the riddle in the first place. What would be fascinating is Riddler giving him these questions that really have no answers. But the fact that he is from Mother Box technology, it is actually developing answers for unanswerable questions. And that would blow the mind and almost scramble the mind of Nigma. This would be a battle in which it would test Riddler to have to find a way to actually think outside the box. Literally, to think outside of the Mother Box as well. Riddler's mind would have to go omnipresent even for one moment just to deliver a riddle that even the Mother Box would not be able to develop an answer to. I'm not sure how you would write it and what it would entail, but that would be kind of cool. Now I have the Joker for the Flash. This is another comparison from villain to hero that it might not make much sense, in the sense that Joker would not necessarily be able to withstand anything from the Flash in the first place. Realistically, we have to turn off reality when looking at these matchups because, I mean, at the end of the day, the Flash is so fast, he's so unbelievably overpowered, especially when the writers want him to be, yet he is still a character that could get sideswiped by Catwoman Catwoman and also get frozen by Captain Cold, two things that he could have ran around the world 50 times over before he actually let that happen to him. So if we're going to deal with stuff like that, I think it would be okay that the Joker would be able to mess with him from time to time. Depending on the Flash you use, this could be somewhat similar to a situation that I always describe Joker would be with Spider-Man. Perhaps Joker's jokes would not work on the Flash the way it would maybe work with Batman, or the fact that the Flash could even be a little funnier than Joker sometimes. I think it would really piss him off and send him over the edge to the point where Joker is now threatening the actual death and humiliation of Flash's family members and his friends too. But he definitely knows there would be no way to beat him through speed, or for him to even try anything through the speed of the Flash. So he would need to develop these plans in which he is catching the Flash off guard, something that even his speed would not be able to account for, and also hurting him at the core, messing with his brain, and also affecting his heart by going after the people he loves. And the Joker, whereas he is all about chaos, he does not care who he affects. He will absolutely do this out of spite to get to the Flash. Now, last but certainly not least, I decided to go with Mr. Freeze against Blue Beetle, and to be clear, it would be the Ted Kord Blue Beetle as well. I think if you went against Jaime Reyes Blue Beetle, that would be a little unfair. At least with Ted Kord's variation of him, there is a matchup that is worth having. You could even take these characters' rivalry like back into the origin of Mr. Freeze. Perhaps he worked for Kord Industries, and perhaps there was a department there that was working on advanced cryoscience. Maybe Mr. Freeze was not only developing a new form of freeze technology, but of course he was doing it to save his wife as well. And something of course happens that makes him into the villainous Mr. Freeze, the one that has to walk around in a cryo suit with a freeze gun, forever cursed to try and find a cure for his wife. And whatever happened for that to happen to him is now placed on the head of Ted Kord, in which he always has a vendetta against him for allowing this to happen to him, even though Ted Kord was nowhere near when this incident happened, and it wasn't his fault that Mr. Freeze was dabbling in this tech in the first place. Mr. Freeze is constantly trying to rob and steal from Kord Industries, trying to get some new developments in his technology to save his wife. He's constantly going after Ted Kord because Ted Kord is always going after him, and they just have this bitter, cold rivalry against one another. Because I always see Ted Kord's Blue Beetle being a lot more of a gadgetary guy than Jaime Reyes's Blue Beetle is, this would be a good villain for Ted Kord to actually showcase the type of gadgets he has been able to utilize from his own company and from the alien technology he utilizes as well. There it is, some Batman villains being given to other DC superheroes. There are, of course, other Batman villains I didn't get around to in this video. Perhaps I might even make a part 2 for Batman villains themselves and continue on this trend. But for now, leave in the comments below what you thought of some of my choices, and even some of the villains I didn't mention. Which DC superheroes would they be going to? That is all I have for you on this video, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed, and until the next time, I will talk to you all very soon.